So once again, thank you for the invitation. I'm here representing Fred, who is the president of the Portuguese Association for Blockchain and Cryptocurrencies or Crypto Assets. I head the technological committee at the association. Fred asks that you excuse him. He was unable to come due to last-minute commitments. He asked me to come and present for him our position or our opinion on the use of blockchain for non-profit organizations, as is the case for the association itself. Very quickly, I would like to mention the difference between blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. Although blockchain is a distributed ledger technology, they are not one and the same. And this has a significance for non-profit organizations. I would like to mention the 5 T's that we think are the main advantages of blockchain for non-profit organizations overall, but mostly non-profit organizations, governmental or non-governmental. I would like to talk about some use cases that are being made of blockchain technology all over the world in non-governmental and non-profit organizations, and talk about a couple of use cases that we are working on at the APBC. So the formal definition for blockchain can be something very boring: a digital ledger in which transactions are made in Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency or crypto asset or crypto token, and they are recorded chronologically and publicly. So I'm not going to go into the details of the technological details of the blockchain. I mean, you've already had some very good presentations here. But in the definition itself, you can find there the digital ledger. It's important to understand that digital ledger technologies have been in existence before. They have been used in the past. There are several available. Blockchain is a digital ledger technology, but brings a very significant change, which is the cooperative model, the distributed model, the consensus model. Lots of digital ledger technologies have existed, are in existence. They can be used by companies, but blockchain brings the big advantage that it can be used by several organizations at once without having a central point of trust. So one of the better definitions, or one of the definitions that we like more about blockchain, is one that comes from the WE forum. And it's what blockchain enables us to do, not what blockchain is as a technology, but what it enables us to do. And adapted from their definition, blockchain, what it does is that it enables decentralizing secure storage and transfer of information. One of the applications of this is currency, yes, or CryptoKitties. I like CryptoKitties, they're cool, and I made money out of them. I did. But this decentralization of storage, this decentralization of, and secure storage, decentralization of information is getting to be an extremely powerful tool at several instances. In particular, obviously, enterprises, companies, businesses, but it has huge impacts beyond the economic relevance of the technology. The blockchain technology can minimize friction, and this means reduced costs, but it can also reduce corruption through the transparency of and auditability, traceability of the blockchain. It increases trust in organizations. If your organization is using blockchain to store information and publish information, you are more likely to be trusted by your users. And finally, blockchain technology is actually being used to empower user themselves, the end user themselves, not just businesses or organizations. So how does blockchain do this? Once again, you've already had a bunch of good presentations about the innards of the technology, but basically, blockchain in itself, it's a database. Nothing else, nothing more. But a distributed database and decentralized database. Two different things. Because you have distributed databases, like Oracle, but they are not blockchain, they are centralized. Blockchain has the difference that it's distributed, several computers, and decentralized. No single organization in charge of the infrastructure. And this is what brings its power and its capacity for change in economic terms, in financial terms, but also in terms of social changes, in terms of changes to the structure of our own society. So you have a distributed database, and since it doesn't entail monolithic centralized authority over the data, it means that you can exchange peer-to-peer information. This can be coins, send 1 Bitcoin from Mario to Nuno, but it can also be, for example, confidential information or proprietary information or not safe, not confidential, what's the word in English? Sensitive information. You can send it peer-to-peer without going through, for example, WikiLeaks. With blockchain, you don't have to send your documents to WikiLeaks for them to be published anonymously and rely on WikiLeaks and as an independent, trusted third party. You can publish your documents directly on the blockchain, which brings some curious problems. Blockchain also brings transparency with pseudonymity. People think that blockchain is anonymous. It's not. It's pseudonymous. I know how much money is on that wallet, your wallet. I just don't know that it belongs to you. Another important characteristic of blockchain, irreversibility of records. You don't have that in distributed ledger technology. Since distributed ledger technology, standard distributed ledger technology is centralized, the organization in charge of the distributed ledger can come in and roll back changes, roll back information, update, delete information. In the blockchain, since it's decentralized, to roll back information or to make a fork, as it's called, you have to get consensus from more than 51% of the network. Now, these things, just a while ago I said, which brings us to a curious problem, and I'll restate that again. This capability to publish documents on the blockchain with pseudonymity, with irreversibility of records, brings a couple of interesting problems that I personally find interesting due to my background. This doesn't sound good. which is, what if someone goes onto a blockchain, any blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, whatever blockchain, and publishes child pornography on that blockchain? Now, suddenly you have a problem. Irreversibility of records. Now try to get a government to erase that information from the blockchain. It won't be able to do it. It's there forever, publicly. There's no way to make it go back. Guess what? It already happened. Another interesting problem that it brings, these characteristics are, I see a lot of companies getting in on the bandwagon and saying, we are going to use the blockchain to store all our data. Oh yes? And how does that work with the current European GDPR regulations? Because you see, under the European General Data Protection rules, you are supposed to provide to your customers or your employees or your members the capability to remove their personal data. Now, if you store anyone's personal data on a blockchain, you won't be able to be GDPR compliant. So, as I usually say, GDPR is basically, for several other reasons, but totally out of sync with reality. Not just because of blockchain, which is quite recent, but because of other reasons, GDPR is just insane. But anyway. So what does this mean? This means that using blockchain technology, you are able to do a bunch of interesting things that you weren't able to do before without having to rely on supposedly independent third parties. One of those parties, when you talk about currencies, money, is the supposed independent third parties, trusted third parties, like European Central Bank, or the Fed in the US, or the banks, Portuguese banks, for example, which are, I've heard, independent, trusted third parties, or maybe not. But you can do a bunch of things with blockchain technology that you weren't able to do before. For example, sending and receiving money throughout the world is much, much cheaper. It's one of the first advantages that people look at or understand about blockchain technologies. But you can also use blockchain technologies, for example, to verify sustainability practices. For example, in genetically modified foods, in crop produce, in the export of food throughout the world, in pharmaceutical production. You can use the blockchain whenever there are several organizations connected together. You can use the blockchain to verify that all the steps in the process are being followed, and all of them have whatever characteristics you want them to have, namely that they are ethical, they are moral, they are legal. Other things that blockchain technology can be used to track shipments, not only normal shipments as in companies that are already doing that to track logistics around the world. You can also track aid shipments in the case of non-profit organizations. You can use the blockchain technology to prove ownership. In third world countries, blockchain is being used to document real world estate. For example, here in Portugal, we could also do that. I'm not saying that we are a third world country, but we still don't have the right way to track land in Portugal, as it was so clearly demonstrated last year with the fires that happened throughout the country, where you couldn't find who the land belonged to. Also, blockchain is being used, for example, to verify identity, especially in the case, for example, of refugees. Let me illustrate these examples further. I mean, yeah. 2 minutes, okay, that's quick. So, I mean, the obvious use for non-profit organizations, non-governmental organizations, the obvious use is donations. So you can use a Bitcoin address to receive donations all around the world, and to receive donations in countries where you might not be able to receive donations, or from countries, from people who might not be able to give you donations. But you can go further. Blockchain technology is being used, once again, to very intensively in third world countries to send money internationally at much lower costs than the usual international money transfer companies. You can go further than that. The Swiss company has been providing the Rohingya refugees with identity cards that are not identity cards, that are registers on a blockchain, providing them with a way to authenticate themselves whenever receiving help or identifying themselves to authorities. More than that, you actually have one coin, Hatecoin, which was launched specifically for non-profit organizations. You can transfer you can buy this coin to provide money to non-profit organizations, and they can use the AidCoin to distribute in a transparent way those funds to non-profit organizations all over the world. Even more interesting, you actually have an exchange, an online exchange, where you can buy and sell digital tokens, digital assets. You have an exchange that is specifically targeted for non-profit organizations, for non-governmental organizations, charging lower costs for transmission and for transactions, but also providing a bunch of services that are relevant in some cases, like, for example, the identification of donors, the identification of the people who receive the help, guaranteeing that there is transparency in the money, in the use of the money that is being donated. So there's actually more that you can do using blockchain at non-profit organizations, other than just thinking about, oh, we can get more money or send money more quickly or cheaply. We at the APBC are looking in particular in the area of blockchain for non-profit or non-governmental organizations. We are looking at two technologies in particular. One is the Polis project. This allows for secure online anonymous voting. So we will be implementing this voting process at the association for making decisions, getting decisions from our members. So we already made a first online vote, which is, do you agree with us getting the votes on the blockchain? And we got 14 votes, no votes against, so it was a successful campaign. So this is a very interesting technology, because you can tie it with your national ID card in the case of any country. We are also working on using this technology, EGAS, which is made by a company called Appala, Electronic Government as a Service. It's basically a blockchain platform that provides a bunch of processes already put in place for organizing, as it says, economic, public, and social activities. Not only voting, but also transmission of property, implementation of rule of law, smart contracts. And so we are intending and testing this technology to use within the association. So there's a lot of interesting uses that can be made of the blockchain in non-profit organizations, not just the common or the usual use of Bitcoin. It's money and it's cheaper. There's a whole lot of different stuff that you can use blockchain for. At the association, although most of us, myself, I'm a trader in crypto assets. I'm a broker in crypto assets. I'm also a miner. I mine Ethereum, Verge, and as a trader and broker, I hold Cardano. What else? So Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Cardano, and a bunch of other coins, whatever is profitable at the moment. So I am, most of us at the association are for profit. We are definitely interested in profit. There's no one more interested in profit than me. I have no problem admitting that. But the way we see it at the association, just let me make a quick parenthesis, it's the first association that I've ever accepted being a member of. At the association level, we think that we are talking about a different stage than what blockchain is for enterprises. At enterprise, at companies, in the for-profit scenario, blockchain currently means the usual that it means at companies. For making a better profit, you either get more revenues or you decrease costs. And this is the way that blockchain is being used at for-profit organizations. Getting more revenue, decreasing costs. I have no problem against that. I like it. I love it. I do it. At the association level, we think that the focus is we think that we are at another stage, which is at the point of we have to create value, and we do that by working together, and we are at the point where we distribute value. So right now, more than being at the stage where we are able to increase revenues and decrease costs, more than that, at this point, blockchain brings us the capability to create value, not only economic and financial value, but also social and personal value. And blockchain brings us the capability to distribute that value in a very different way than that it's being done in the past. That's it. Mostly on time, I hope.